examples. At specialized hospitals, for example, for example, ophthalmology, yes, for example, neurology, and so on. Various equipment for investigation of acuity of sensation and perception in different analyses are used. At physiological study, perception is examined with different charts and pictures. For example, it can be illustration of object. It can be the outlines, pictures with superimposed outlines of the objects. It can be different schemes with visual illusions. It can be pictures, figure, and background, or very modern and popular now method called mysterious pictures. Yes, and there is one new modern form of psychotherapy used mysterious pictures, a method of projective work with patients. So all these methods we can use for perception study. For examining the vision and visual perception, special charts and technical means are used. To study auditory acuteness and vestibular perception, audiometer, Weber's compasses are used. To study stereognosis, like touching the object without looking at it, it is very necessary to have different objects. Models of cars, animals can be used, yes, according to the age and of your patient and according to the aim of your, according to the goal of your psychological work and like this. So this is the main information about sensation perception. Now let's begin to discuss thinking and the speech. So what does it mean, thinking? Thinking is a mediated, generalized reflection of reality in the human mind, with all its important ties and connections. Besides this, we can characterize thinking by specific psychological phenomenon, specific cognitive phenomenon, which is always based on the sensitive reflection of the world. The properties of things and phenomena, connections between them are reflected in the generalized form as the type of notions, laws, and essence. That is, the images of sensitive cognition are the material only with the help of which reflection can arise on the level of thought. It is always, thinking always develops as a result of the knowledge acquired by a human being. In practice, thinking as a separate mental process doesn't exist. It exists invisibly in all other cognitive processes, like perception, like memory, attention, etc. Thinking is generalized cognition of reality, where the words, language, functions of analysis they are very important. With development of psychology, language, studying activities, playing activities, if we speak about children, for example, one can follow gradually, development and improvement of thinking with all its features. Inherent in the given historic area and appropriate individual condition of development in a defined microenvironment, and this is structure of society is very important for someone, for students who want to understand the general concept of thinking. What does it mean? What components thinking includes, and so on. This thinking includes several mental operations like analysis, synthesis, schematization, classification, generalization, abstraction, and so on. First, basic mental operation of thinking is analysis. Analysis is a dissembling of a whole into parts in thoughts or mental apportionment of its aspects, actions, and relations from the whole. This is for definition of analysis. Synthesis. Synthesis is a mental assembling of the parts, properties, actions into the whole. Yes, the opposite process. Synthesis is a not mechanical unity of the parts, and thus it doesn't result in the something in the combination. As a main rule, analysis and synthesis are carried out together, rendering assistance to more through cognition of the reality. So, first combination is analysis and synthesis. The next combination is comparison. Comparison is a determination of similarity or difference between subjects and phenomena of the separate signs. While considering them in different aspects and combination, we get to know that the subjects, objects, and phenomena better and more thoroughly. Next combination of basic mental operations is abstraction and concrete thinking. Abstraction permits to pick out certain elements from the wholes and concrete on them, thus making reality more schematized. This is abstraction. And concrete thinking is a transition of the from the abstract to the individual real subjects and phenomenon. This concrete. Next group of basic mental operations is systematization, classification, and generalization. Let's begin from the generalization. Generalization is a selection of general and essential that is typically for the defined number of subjects and notions. If we speak about classification, classification is a division of the grouping of objects on the basis of certain elements. And systematization is a division with the following grouping, but not of separate objects as in classification, and the groups or classes like in classification. Yes, it's the main difference between these two mental operations. When we speak about thinking, about different types of thinking, mental operations of thinking, we should use 3 categories. Sorry, 3 categories: concept, conclusion, and judgment. Concept, what does it mean, concept? Concept is a reflection in the mind of general and important properties of a group of initial objects or phenomena of reality. Concepts are the highest form of reflection of reality, as they reflect the general, most important, regular properties of objects and phenomena. Defined concept reflects the ties and relationship between objects and phenomena. Abstract concepts do not reflect real objects or phenomena. They reflect only certain properties of objects, combining into notions of the basis of abstractions of the given objects. This is concept. The conclusion. Conclusion is a link between thoughts or between judgments, for example, resulting in getting different judgment from one or several judgments, or withdrawing it from the content of initial judgment. And the last one is judgment. We can define judgment as a reflection of the link between the subjects and phenomena of reality, or judgment can be described as between their properties and signs. Judgment, always judgment, is the result of somebody's expression about something. Judgment affirm or reject any relations between subjects or between events or phenomena of the reality. So these are three main categories: judgment, conclusion, and concept. When we speak about different form of thinking, we can mention about, first of all, categories of thinking: yes, induction and deduction. Induction and deduction are the means of making conclusions which reflect direction of thought. Induction is a movement of thought from a single statement of general knowledge. Inductive conclusion results in general judgment, and deduction is a movement of knowledge from the more general to less general. So, next form is classification of thinking. Thinking can be classified according to different characteristics, according character of ideas. I am sure that you can make a photo of this classification, or of this slide, and use it. It's not need to pay our attention for this classification, just information to know about this. Yes, it can be visual, it's semantic thinking. If some of you will interested, if we will work as a medical psychologist, or maybe you will want to do some scientific research, some scientific work, then of course you will read about this more detail. But now it's enough for you to know this definition: visual and semantic. It can be intuitive thinking, and it can be analytic thinking too. What else? When we speak about classification of thinking according characteristic of the task solved, we can speak about practical thinking and about theoretical thinking. Yes, and the next one, kind of classification. If we classify thinking into according its functions, we can speak about creative thinking and about stereotype thinking. If we speak about specific characteristic of content, if we speak about classification thinking according to the content of the task being solved, there can be three kinds of thinking. Can be visual active thinking, and it can be what else? It can be concrete graphic thinking, and it can be abstract logical thinking. Of course, you can make what of this? Visual. What does it mean, visual active thinking? Let's discuss a little bit these forms of thinking. Visual active thinking is thinking where solving the task includes automotive task. This characteristic, for example, visual active thinking at preschool. Of course, you can read this definition. Okay, I will try to explain you what does it mean, what characteristic of visual active thinking can be. For example, at preschool age, I mean under the 3 years, thinking is visual active in general. Yes, the children in this age, they have only this form of thinking, and it is very often applied in adults in everyday life, and it is very necessary if it is impossible to provide the results to any actions. For example, actions beforehand, for example, work of a test, constructor, and so on. The next one is concrete graphic thinking. Concrete graphic thinking is connected with operating images. This form of thinking is completely and extensively represented in children of preschool, from, for example, 4 till 7 years old, and for young school ages. But in adults, it occurs in the people whose professions, occupations are connected with a clear and lovely conception about different subjects or phenomena. For example, artists, musicians, actors, writers, and so on. And the last one form, abstract logical thinking, operates on the basis of linguistic means and represents later stage of historic and ontogenic development of thinking. This thinking is, abstract thinking, characterized by the use of notions, logical constructions, and so on. Due to verbal-logical thinking, yes, kind of abstract logical thinking, a person can establish more general appropriateness, provide for the development of processes in the nature and society, to generalize different visual materials, subjects, and so on. From the age of 8 to 10 years, one can clearly observe development of abstract logical thinking. They think of very conceptual thinking, and up to 14, 16 years, the ability to form the highest form of abstraction, complex judgment and conclusion is being formed, and they are the basis of consciousness and self-consciousness. It should be noted that all types of thinking are closely connected with each other. Therefore, while trying to determine the type of thinking, one should remember that this process is always relative and conditional. The development of all the types of thinking and their unity can provide correct and quite complete reflection of reality by the man. If we speak about different characteristics of thinking, we can mention about quality of thinking. Quality of thinking can be characterized by depth of thinking, by superficial thinking, and by independence of thinking. All these three characteristics you can see in your screen, and you can make photo of this characteristic. Next form of characteristic of thinking is flexibility and speed of thinking. Yes, very necessary to know too. What about speed? There are several words about speed. It is necessary to take into account inhibition of thinking by negative emotion. Very often it's associated with a negative emotion. It's necessary cases the person has to make defined decision very, very quickly. For example, during accident, for you, like for future doctor, during the operation, how quickly can you make some decisions, and so on. Next characteristic of thinking, it is consistency and criticism of mind. Consistency, it is systematic character and strict logic. Characteristic of thinking and criticism of mind is the ability of the man to evaluate personal and other ideas objectively. When we speak about thinking, we should mention that thinking closely connected with the language, and very often when language is only one way for us to to describe thinking, to understand if patient has some problems or he hasn't any problems. When we speak about thinking, we should say that thinking, language. Language is a system of signs which means different knowledge